The ropes dug into my wrists, rough and unforgiving. Beside me, Elara trembled, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored my own. We were bound to the great oak at the edge of town, the sacrificial tree. This was it, our lives offered up in a desperate attempt to appease the insatiable. We were the chosen offerings for the ancient tales, whispered in hushed tones around dwindling fires, spoke of their origin. They were the children of the Watchers, celestial beings who forsook their heavenly duties, descending to earth to take human women as their wives. This union was an abomination, a corruption of God's creation. From it, a race of giants was born. Their very existence was a blight upon the land. In the beginning, their immense size was a spectacle. But as they grew, so did their appetites. They devoured the harvests, leaving fields barren and granaries empty. Famine swept across the lands like a plague. The world, once abundant, was driven to starvation by their endless hunger. When the crops were gone, they turned to the livestock, consuming entire herds until the fields fell silent, devoid of even the bleat of a single lamb. But their hunger was a bottomless pit, a void that could never be filled. Soon, the animals were not enough. Their gaze turned to the very people who once marveled at them. Panic and horror gripped the hearts of men. In a twisted act of self-preservation, towns began to offer up their own, a grim lottery of life and death, hoping a small sacrifice would spare the many. Today, the lot had fallen on Elara and me. We could hear it approaching. The ground vibrated with each colossal footstep, a rhythmic drumming that sounded our doom. I looked at Elara, at the tears streaming down her face, and a fire I didn't know I possessed ignited within me. No, we would not die like this. I strained against the ropes, my skin screaming in protest. The fibers were old, frayed from countless prior sacrifices. I twisted and pulled, feeling a slight give. "Elara," I hissed. "Pull with me." Adrenaline surged through us. Together, we strained against our bonds, the rough bark tearing at our backs. The sound of the giant grew louder, closer. It was just beyond the tree line now. With a final, desperate heave, the rope around my right wrist snapped. I frantically worked on the others, my fingers raw and bleeding. Just as a monstrous shadow fell over us, we broke free. We didn't look back. We scrambled into the dense woods, the sounds of snapping branches and a guttural roar of fury echoing behind us. The Nephilim had found the sacrificial tree empty. Its rage was palpable, a terrifying wave of sound that washed over the forest. We ran, blindly, desperately, our lungs burning. Then the screaming started, not the roar of the monster, but the cries of our people, the townspeople, the ones who had tied us to that tree. The Nephilim, denied its offering, had turned its wrath upon them. We could hear the sounds of chaos, of terror, of a town being consumed. The screams were a symphony of horror that would be etched into our minds forever. We found a small cave, nestled in a rock face, and squeezed ourselves into the darkness. We huddled together, shaking, as the screams from our village slowly, agonizingly, faded into an eerie silence. The silence was almost worse. We were alone survivors of a massacre we had narrowly escaped, but for how long? The monster knew we were out here. It would hunt us. In the suffocating darkness of that cave, with the stench of death still hanging in the air, a memory surfaced, faint stories told by the elders of a time before the Watchers, before the giants, stories of a single, powerful God, the God of Adam, the first man. They said he had created everything. They said he was a God of justice, a God of salvation. It was a long-forgotten faith, an obscure legend, but in our desperation, it was all we had. Elara and I, we began to pray. Our words were clumsy, uncertain. We didn't know the right way, the proper rituals. We just spoke from our terrified hearts. God of Adam, I whispered into the darkness, my voice cracking. If you are there, you can hear us ... please. Save us from this monster. Spare us. Elara joined in, her quiet sobs turning into fervent pleas. We prayed for mercy, for a deliverance we didn't deserve, from a God we barely knew. The ground began to tremble again. A heavy, rhythmic thudding approached our hiding place. It was searching. The Nephilim was coming for us. The entrance to our small cave was suddenly blocked, a colossal shape blotting out the last sliver of moonlight. An enormous eye, glowing with malevolent hunger, peered into the darkness, right at us. There was no escape. This was the end. My prayer died on my lips, replaced by a cold, absolute despair, and then a light. Not moonlight, but a brilliant, searing radiance that descended from the sky like a falling star. It struck the ground between our cave and the giant with the force of a thunderclap. The Nephilim recoiled, shielding its eyes and letting out a roar of pain and confusion. Standing in the center of the blinding light was a figure. It was humanoid in shape, but radiated a power and glory that was not of this world. It held a sword that seemed forged from flame and starlight. An angel of the Lord, the monster, for all its size and fury, looked small before this celestial warrior. It charged, but the angel moved with impossible speed, a blur of divine light. There was a clash, a sound that shook the very foundations of the earth, and then ... silence. When the light subsided, the angel stood alone. The Nephilim was gone, turned to nothing more than dust and memory. The angel turned its gaze towards us in the cave. There was no anger, no judgment, only a profound peace that washed over us, calming our racing hearts. It spoke no words, but we understood. We were safe. God had heard our prayer in our moment of greatest need. When all hope was lost, He had answered. He sent His salvation not because we were worthy, but because we cried out to Him in our desperation. He is a God who hears and a God who saves. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking and subscribing for more. Follow for the next chapter.